doing real good so far.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley. My name is Jackie Franklin, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. We are a welcoming congregation committed to supporting one another in our search for spiritual meaning and community. We learn from many sources in our search to be the best person we can be, but we are always united on the side of love and justice. We like to say that we don't have to think alike to love alike. If you are new to UU, I encourage you to take note of our mission statement, which is printed on the front of the order of service. We also work together to promote and practice the 8 principles printed on the inside of the order of service. It is our tradition to welcome first and second time visitors, and those of you who haven't been here for a while, to stand if you are comfortable and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. So, do we have any visitors today? We'll start over on this side.
I'm Ron Riffle, and I'm here, right here in Black Mountain, neighbors with Diane and Richard.
I'm Philip Page. I'm here with my wife, who was the first time visitor recently, and we live over in
Welcome.
I'm Lola. I'm from Warren Wilson College. I'm Jossie. I'm also from Warren Wilson College.
So glad you're here. Anybody else over on this side?
Hi, my name's Edwin. I live in Emersonville.
And I'm his sister, and I brought my 3 kids that are outside playing, Max, Everett, and Brooks.
Welcome to you all. If you're interested in learning more about us, or you would like to receive our newsletter or find out how you can become more involved with this community, there's a white card. There's some in the back of the pews or in the hymnals. There's also some out in the foyer. We encourage you to fill out a card, and then we'll know how to get in touch with you. I have in keeping with our project to be in right relationship with indigenous peoples, I'm going to read you our acknowledgement, which is also out on the sign in our front yard. UUCSV acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the ancestral home of the Cherokee and other indigenous people. The Cherokee, through stewardship, understanding, and conservation, survived and thrived in this land. We acknowledge their enduring connection to their homeland. And I have one announcement, tiny print. The Social Action Committee is sponsoring a collection for African refugees arriving in Asheville. From last Sunday to this Sunday, there's a box out front, it's still out there now, with items that you can donate, like towels and sheets, pots and pans, trash cans, brooms, groceries, and there's a more complete list in our current. We will, that will be out there today if you would like to designate something for that. Okay, please silence your phones, and we will begin our service.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Boy, it's a beautiful day, isn't it?
Yes.
Cold? That's how I said cold. Almost. The solstice is coming up. Don't worry, you'll be out of here by 12. So you'll get out of here. The words of Kathleen Mateague. We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment, until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces. I guess we'll take the mask off at some point. And in there we will see the communion and the reflection of each other's eyes. This house of laughter and silence and memory and hope is hallowed by our presence, by your presence, together. Good morning. And so we will now open the service with our opening hymn. Please rise as you are willing and able, and join in singing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit. Louder than this. And I know it's early, but I want you to sing this last verse like, I mean, come on, we're live. Okay, we're live. So just sing it. If you make a mistake, sing it. Thank you. Gather the Spirit, going in all, drawn by the moon, and fed by the sun, winter to spring, and summer to fall, the chorus of love, resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. All right, thank you. Our reading this morning, and I want you to read it. We're going to be out soon. 647. So read it responsibly. The eternal verity, the eternal truth. Ancient as the home is the temple, and ancient as the workbench is the altar. Ancient as the sword is the sacrificial fire. Ancient as the soldier is the priest. Older than written language is spoken prayer. Older than painting is the thought of a nameless one. Religion is the first and last, the universal language of the human heart. Differing words describe the outward appearance of things. Diverse symbols represent that which stands beyond and within. Yet every person's hunger is the same, and heart communicates with heart. Ever the vision leads on with many gods or with one, with a holy land washed by ocean waters, or a holy land within the heart. In because we are human, we shall ever build our altars, because each has a holy yearning. We offer everywhere our prayers and anthems.
For an eternal purity lies beneath diversities. We are children of one great love, united in our one eternal family.
Yes, yes, make it so, make it so.
Hello, hello. It's the second Sunday, and we have our special music program today with Andy Gwynn. And many of you have seen him on video, but we have him live today. He's a multi-instrumentalist and singer-songwriter. Grew up and was born in Eden, North Carolina. Went to Davidson College. Retired from the North Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice, working at Camp Woodson, a therapeutic wilderness program for adjudicated youth, and founded a worship band at Black Mountain Presbyterian Church, where he just hoofed it from there this morning. He played for them and then came here. So thank you.
It's just down the street. Pretty easy. Linda asked me if I walked. Well, I had a few bags to carry. Yeah, it's good to be here. You all have seen me on your video, but this is the first time live being here, so that's pretty cool. It's good to see that you exist. I've seen you milling around after the service on the coffee hour thing that they do on your video broadcast. This song, The Maker by Daniel Lanois, I've always loved this song, and the prominent figure in it is John the Baptist, who gets a lot of press this time of year. We did this song at my church last Sunday, and it's a good to, as you listen to the lyrics, just think about the refugee family that's moving here. It kind of has a nice congruency. Anyway, The Maker by Daniel Lanois. Oh, deep water, black and cold, like the night. I stand with arms wide open. I've run a twisted line. I'm a stranger in the eyes of the Maker. I could not see for the fog in my eyes. I could not feel for the fear in my life. And across the great divide, in the distance I saw light. Jean-Baptiste walking to me with the Maker. My body is bent and broken by long can work the fields of Abraham and turn my head away. I'm not a stranger in the hands of the Maker. Brother John, have you seen the homeless daughters standing there with broken wings? I have seen the flaming swords there over east of Eden, burning in the eyes of the Maker, burning in the eyes of the Maker, burning in the eyes of the Maker. Oh, river, rise from your sleep. Oh, river, rise from your sleep.
So this is the time in the service when we invite you to come and share a joy, a concern, a sorrow. Diane will light the fire for you. And the mic is yours. And now the floor is yours. Did you understand the question? I mean, you always fool me. Very good, very good. This is on tape.
Good morning, I'm Mary Soyanova, and it's not necessarily a joy or a concern, it's more of a request. When my husband passed away many years ago, I donated a hymn book in his name. And I haven't seen it for quite a while. And I like to have it at the service because it's a comfort to me. And so I'm going to ask you all to look in your hymn books and see if you have the hymn book that I donated. I'd appreciate it. And if you do, I'll be able to have it when I come to services. Thank you so much.
This too is neither a candle of joy or concern or celebration. It's a candle of remembrance because Asheville lost two people in the past week or so who deserve to be remembered because they made the community a better place. I knew both of them. Larry Dorr was a former Jesuit and a professor and a leader in the community who also left the Jesuit priesthood when he married and later taught ethics in this community and at UNC Asheville. And his loss is, he was living at Highland Farms, his loss is really sad one for the community because of his ethical grounding. And the other is Bonnie Love, who was an African-American native of Asheville, who was one of the founders of the Ministry for Health Care for those who couldn't afford insurance, who were ineligible for the strictures of Medicaid, and who did so much for this community in the 90s and 2000s before she moved to Charlotte. And we lost her just a couple of weeks ago. So people like that deserve to be remembered, not just in their own congregations, but throughout the community. And I want to remember both of them.
All right. Norris, my husband, is in Solace, which is a hospice place in Asheville. And it was really hard to get him in there. I had to go by way of taking him to the emergency room of Advent Hospital, and then he was there for 3 days, and then they were not taking him into any nursing home, any place like that, and a hospitalist got him into hospice, and his kidneys are at the failure range, and I'm actually glad, I'm relieved he's in a place where he's being taken care of, because I couldn't take care of him anymore, and they're so kind there, yeah, and so my time with him is of a better quality than me taking care of him and saying, do this, do that, yeah, go to the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. So, if anyone wants to, who he would know, wants to send a card or something, it's Solace. It's in Asheville. Ask me if you need the address. Okay? So, I can breathe.
I'm Linda Tatzpod. I've just been thinking about, it took me a whole day to learn about the tornadoes and just think about those folks and what they're dealing with. Always that's difficult, and especially the holidays.
Please keep Jane Carroll's brother Chip in your thoughts and prayers. He's got some news, some more health news. A setback. I mean, he's still in the fight, but he's had a rough time. I spoke to Jane this morning, and she and David are in Tennessee. So I don't have permission to go any further than that, and I don't want to unless I hear from her. So, but just keep her and David and Chip in your thoughts and prayers. For those of you who, for whatever reason, did not decide to come up and share a joy and concern, know that we keep you in our hearts and in our minds. Yeah, let's do the meditation. We'll have the time of quiet as we usually do. And just center yourselves in the way that you center yourselves. And let's be still. We each have our own way of entering into meditation, becoming centered and quiet within, and so let us just do that now and reflect on the content of our lives, especially this time of year. For the fullness of life, which blesses us with bounty, beauty, unexpected prosperity, abundance, we give thanks. We lift to awareness those events which have enriched our lives in the past week. Those events and gifts for which we are grateful. For beloved friends, colleagues, and members of our families who bring love into our lives, we give thanks. We lift to awareness the names and faces of loved ones for whom we have concerns, be they near or far. As we see their faces, Spirit of Life, may we discover how our lives may intersect with theirs more creatively. May our loved ones be sustained in health and in hope. Some of us have suffered disappointments in this past week. We are in pain. We may be downcast in spirit, we may be anxious, or maybe we may have some difficult decisions to make. And so we may be regretting deeds that we have done or left undone. This is the human condition, is it not? We may be angry at ourselves or others, and so we lift to awareness our very personal yearnings and desires and needs at this time. May we once again be open to the graciousness of life, renewed in hope, forgiving and forgiven, sustained in health, reconciled to one another, and restored in spirit. It's not for everyone, and we have no control over that, but life is good. Life is good. It is rich and glorious, and we give thanks for life. In the name of that love which flows from eternal sources in us and through us, astounding and transforming us. So be it, and so it is. And now, while our minds are one for this brief moment, I leave you with the eloquence of silence. And so it is. The words of Muhammad as we collect this morning's offering. Our true wealth is the good that we do in this world. None of us has faith unless we desire for our neighbors what we desire for ourselves. The wisdom of Brother Muhammad. And so in that spirit, we will now collect this morning's offering.
If I don't hang myself with my cord here. I imagine a lot of you know the song River by Joni Mitchell. It's a sort of melancholy holiday song, but that's the reality I think that we face is the holiday period is not always filled with joy and blessings for everyone. And I think this song does a very good acknowledgement of that. This is River by Joni Mitchell. I gotta get the tune. At least I can hear. Oh, I see what the problem is. Sorry about that. He's in that key. We'll do better. It's coming on Christmas. They're cutting down trees, putting up reindeer, and singing songs of joy and peace. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. It don't snow here, it stays pretty green. I'm gonna make a lot of money, then I'm gonna quit this crazy scene. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I made my baby cry. You know, she tried hard to help me, tried to put me at ease. And then she loved me so naughty, made me weak in my knees. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I'm so hard to handle, I'm selfish and I'm sad. Now I've gone and lost the best baby that I ever had. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. I wish I had reindeer and singing songs of joy and peace. Oh, wish I had a river I could skate away
Thank you.
Thank you for your generosity. Very much appreciated. Let's talk about Jane Steger. Her name is Steger. We didn't put the T in her name on the marquee. And since we're confessing errors, the last hymn is number 100. It's always a test on Sunday. So it's not 34, but we'll get to it. As most of you know, I'm a voracious reader, and I always have been. And you know that Dr. Howard Thurman is one of my spiritual mentors. And, you know, on occasion, I do like to, do what I call an autobiographical sermon. And usually that's about an individual who I believe has a message for the world, and their lives reflect that message. And this woman is one of these people. I had never heard of her. And so a few weeks ago, while reading some of the thoughts of Dr. Thurman for some inspiration that I really needed at the time, I came across a woman whom he held in high esteem because of her spirituality and her deep insight. And he writes about her, I'm quoting, he says, "I encountered her in 1925. I was in a very bad state of mind. I had gone through a series of impossible tragedies, and a friend of mine sent me this copy. I'd never heard of her. And I read it, and I reread it, and it's the one book that I never lend out, because I don't. So I simply had to know more about this woman, and so this talk today is about her and her life. She's a woman writer, and she is a mystic. Her name is Jane Steger, but that was actually her pen name. It was the pen name of Margaret Prescott Montague. She was born in 1879, and the sun set on her life in 1955. She was an author of novels and Southern folklore. She was a mystic with a strong interest in Christian mysticism. And so with reading this, I could see why Thurman was drawn to her work, and it resonated with him. After reading her work, he thought of her as a kindred spirit, because as a mystic, she was not interested in the outer forms of Christianity. And she had formed an intense bond with the natural world. And it may sound obvious to us, but a lot of people don't see Christian folks, depending on what brand of Christianity we're talking about, as having that connection with the natural world. So did she, and so did Dr. Thurman, who was more universalist in his theology. He did not believe, well, neither did Dr. King, for instance, in the physical resurrection of Jesus. Had a very different take on those teachings. So Thurman and she had a lot in common. And for some, this would seem contradictory, but there's more to come. Steger was very much aware of the latent spiritual power of women, for which much too long had been dismissed, and still is, and confined. She writes, "Here in this life, we," she's speaking of women, "are like the jack in the box. Our spirit is squeezed into something that is just too small for it, with the lid hooked down tight. But every now and again," she writes, "through the pressure of some high emotion, the lid flies off, and we shoot up to our full height and gaze with delighted eyes on a lovely world. And as we go along, you know, it's like she's seeing two levels of reality, which the mystic does, probably more than two. It's looking at life from a higher altitude, if you will. Thurman writes that Steger is an American woman who has left her record in a single little book, which in many ways is one of the most suggestive and thoroughly and simply illuminating volumes that I have ever read. At the time, the book was 25 years old, he said, and the title of it is this: Leaves from a Secret Journal by Jane Steger. Listen to this passage. She writes, I sit in the center of myself and weave busy thoughts like a black spider making a web. I am so intent on my own spinning that I can see nothing but the whirling of my own mind. If I could only stop a moment and be still, I might take note of the gleaming dewdrops. I might see also the tapestry of other spiders lying in gauzy freshness everywhere on the grass of my imagination. If I could get straight away from the center of my own weaving and kneel down, I might indeed perceive God himself. But the little shuttles of thought fly so fast, just so fast. I'm deafened by their whir, their whir, and I'm entangled in my own web, and I choke myself by the limitations of myself. Isn't that a beautiful image? Thurman says he does not know any details about this remarkable person except what she reveals in her journal. He only says that she is an American woman. And that can mean many things, but he doesn't elaborate. He says it is clear from her writings that around the age of 17 or 18, she became increasingly ill, so that little by little, she couldn't participate in the normal activities of life. And yet, he says that because of her lack of excursions into the outer world, right, the world, the external world, freedom of movement and so forth, she began to find balance by exploring her inner landscape. What a concept. And so she kept a journal. After 8 years into her illness, about 8 years, which he does not know, or he never really names it, she begins to take an interest in mysticism, the New Testament, and the teachings of Jesus. And this is as much as the book reveals about her, he says. Yet what we do know is that Jane Steger believes, as do all mystics, and this is crucial, that there is a spirit in the life of individuals, in the life of this planet. There is a spirit that is creative, and that the external world is the creation of the spirit. And if you are familiar with Platonic thought, Plato said that the template for everything we see out here is invisible. Creativity is best exemplified in things that we recognize in our narrow sort of way, like people and trees and our pets and other people. She believes that there is in the human being, and some may say in all living things, that which is not an expression of creation or the universe, or God, if you don't mind using the word, but that which is the universe itself. So in other words, she's saying that in every living thing, an uncreated element exists. An uncreated element exists. It is a core that is. It is not something that is becoming. It is not something that is potential in us. It is already there. It simply is. And this isness, the mystics say, is God. Or the force, or the cause, the universe, call it what you will, doesn't matter. And furthermore, if I want to find this isness, I don't need to go outside of myself. I don't need a UU minister. I don't need an imam or a rabbi or a priest or a therapist to find it for me. You see, they can help if you need them. But all I need to do is to go within because it's already there. This is what the mystic says. And this is why, my friends, that throughout history, the mystic has been considered a dangerous individual. Because by institutions, whether you're religious, they don't have to be religious institutions, because this kingdom, queendom, call it what you will, is within each and every one of us. And the mystic can tap into a terrible energy. And I don't mean terrible in a negative way, but a mystic can tap into some powerful energy. And this is scary. Jane Steger begins with the simple feeling that all of life is alive. That all creation is alive, and that just behind the tree, or the rock, or the individual is the spirit. Let's stay with the tree. It's the spirit of the tree. And now she's all right, nothing's wrong with this sister. And she says that, this is not new information. This is what I'm saying. To the Western mind, it's still hard for us to wrap our mind. Science, quantum physics, thank goodness, but it's beginning to catch up with what these folks knew eons ago. But see, science says, I'll see it when I believe it. And faith says, believe and I'll show you. Believe and I'll show you. There's two different ways of looking at life. Very different ways. She feels that the living thing in her, this isness, this something in her, is not unlike the living thing that exists in nature, in the tree, in the rock, in the river. And so she realizes and experiences the interconnectedness. She experiences it. It's not up here. You can't get there from here. There are times when she tries to relate these two things. She goes outward and she looks at the tree. And there are moments, she says, when I can hear the tree growing. Put that in your pipe. And what she means is that she can feel the life. She can feel the eros energy. She can feel the pulse in another living thing. It's like when you meet someone who loves plants. Right? And they water the plants every day, and they give it all the nutrients, and they just take care of the plants. And many folks will tell you that it's not just the water or the nutrients that make it grow. It's the fuss you make over it. It's the talk and the music you let it listen to, and they respond to it. I've seen it. And that makes them grow. She says it's the same thing with human beings. She talks about the winks of beauty that she sees in various kinds of human beings. There's something that is in them. It's in all of us, and it's trying to break through. But we, to announce itself to the world, but we're human. And we're burdened by the fears, and we're burdened by the hate and miseries and frustrations and internal disorders and machinations, and so it's blocked. And so we can't really learn to express ourselves. And yet she says that sometimes when it gets through, illumination takes place. I love that word, illumination. We're going to be talking about that on Christmas Eve. Illumination. Thurman says that she has a great chapter on light and how when something in the individual permits him or her to relax their anxieties and fears, when their nervous system calms down and they seek to attune themselves with this God, with that spark that is within them, they seem to become illumined and their very countenance changes. You see it in medieval art, you see the aura. You psychics and sensitives here, you can see the aura around people. You can see the light around people. It's the light, she says, that you feel, though, rather than the one that you see. With this insight, as she began to pray and meditate more, she began to notice that there were so many little expressions of wholeness and winged messengers that we don't realize or see them taking place. Thurman talks about a time when at the close of one of his services, a man from the congregation stood up at the closing hymn to sing. And he was looking outside the window, like you do too when you get bored with me and you just float off. I float off too. And he was looking at the flower. He was looking, and just at the moment that he was looking out the window, a bud burst open from the flower. He just caught it at the right time. And so he was just looking at it. So we're surrounded by it. We're surrounded by it. There's magic all around us. It's in the rocks. It's in the trees. It's in the mind of other human beings. And they're hidden springs. And if you hit it just right, if you hit the rock just right, you just might see it. The poet Wordsworth reminds us that there's music in all things, he says, if we had ears. Steger said that as she got deeper into her prayers and meditations, going deeper and deeper into herself, she got frightened. She got frightened of the things she started to see, the glimpses. She said these new insights scared her because she did not want to turn herself over entirely to these new things because she felt that more would be required of her and she felt that she could not live up to higher expectations. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you had these experiences. She says, suppose God asked her to stand on a street corner and preach. She says she would be too shy and embarrassed to do this. She didn't want to make a promise and then go back on her word. So finally, she said she overcame this fear and she realized that God didn't ask her to do anything like that. God just asked her to tidy up, clean up her house, help out her mother from time to time. She was living with her mother at the time. And so there's one other thing I must mention. And these are her insights into human suffering. They're worth mentioning. Thurman said that she wrote in her journal some of her feelings when her physician told her that her condition would worsen as time went on. And she suffered from limited vision and hearing, and there's something called neurasthenia. Neurasthenia. I looked it up. It's an ill-defined condition, but it's characterized by fatigue, chronic fatigue, both mental and physical, being irritable, headache, associated chiefly with emotional disturbance. And so she said that the thing that frightened her most was not that she would suffer, but it was the fear of suffering, the distinction, that paralyzed her most. And she said simply, I just had to overcome that. She spent many hours in prayer and meditation to get a perspective on her condition, and Thurman says that it was very interesting to him that nowhere in the journal does she say her condition had changed. And now to bring this towards a conclusion. Janet Steger feels, like many mystics do, that there is a line, there's a demarcation, there's a veil. That's a good word. There's a veil that separates the two worlds, the two dimensions. Probably more dimensions, but we know there are at least two. And she feels that there is a door between the worlds, and that the door is here in the human heart. And that we find ourselves going through this door all the time and then coming back on the other side. And she likens it, listen to this, like being a puppy. She says, when the puppy is blind, when it's born, it needs to sniff all the time. The puppy sniffs everything. The puppy has an idea that she will spend the rest of her life guided by her nose. And then one day the puppy opens her eyes and she sees all the world that she didn't even dream existed when she was at the sniffing stage. And she says, that's where you and I are. That's where human beings are. We are in the blind puppy sniffing stage. We are using our minds as the equivalent to the way the puppy uses her nose. And we feel that everything that is everything can only be grasped by our little minds. And that if it doesn't make sense to the mind, then it doesn't make sense at all. And of course, the mystic says, all right, that's what you believe. But she says there will come a time when our eyes will open, as indeed she said in everyone's experience, and there are moments when the eye does indeed open. And many things that I cannot grasp, she says, that we cannot grasp with our minds, disclose themselves to me in a quality of assurance and conviction that is far, far more important than all of the logic that I can muster. Mr. Spock, eat your heart out. The contradiction that Thurman chose not to mention, I don't know why, regarding her biography, Leaves from a Secret Journal, is that Steger was a wealthy white Southern woman with a stereotyped and patronizing view of African Americans. She writes that there was a mysterious something, value, beauty, ecstasy, and other-wareness, W-H-E-R-E-ness, as opposed to A-W-R-E, more frequent in blacks than whites, perhaps because they are more primitive, with less artifice. Something she had observed, in her words, in the long procession of Negro servants in our family. Now, perhaps she was giving folk of color a compliment. Less artifice means less deceitfulness, less cunning, and not as clever. Perhaps the word primitive can be unpacked differently. It can be offensive to 21st century ears because it can mean a less evolutionary, being at a less evolutionary stage in human development, depending on who's using the word. But no more of that. I'll let you decide. Biographical sermons are tricky as only, you have 15, 20 minutes to present a human life, and it's an impossible task. People are complex and contradictory. Life is messy. Relationships are messy. I'm not being apologetic, I'm just saying. I like what I now know about this woman. I can't say I agree with everything, but who agrees with everything? And if she could talk more, maybe I could say, oh, I see where you're coming from. Spiritually, she and I are kindred spirits. I cannot and will not tell you what to think or take from this talk on her life. That's not my aim. I can only share that when one lives in a glass house, you gotta be careful where you throw your stones. There are times when one cannot and should not jump to conclusions until the entire chessboard is revealed, and even then, I would advise caution. Beware cancel culture. Beware that. Jane Steger. What a life. All right, let's go on. Our closing hymn is number 100. Not 34, 100. I've got peace like a river. Oh, let's do all six. Let's not do all six, please. There's a football game on at 1. Let us do 4 in honor of Sister C. Let's do that. Thank you.
Peace like a river, I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul.
So, okay, let's show some love to Brother Andy Glenn here. To the maestro. May the love which overcomes all differences and heals all wounds, and which puts to flight all of our fears and reconciles all who are separated, be with us, among us, now and always. Have a wonderful Sunday afternoon.
Thank you.
We'll see.